Literature and film are typically two very separate mediums. Often the closest overlap is a film adaptation of a popular book, but even then there is a distinct separation in film and literary techniques. However, Thomas Pynchon's novel Gravity's Rainbow combines the cinematic techniques of film with the exploratory capabilities of literature, creating a successful collaboration between internal analysis and visual presentation. With this collaboration, Pynchon also works to make a point about the desire to escape our reality through the worlds and characters of film, and the risk that comes with chasing that Hollywood dream. Pynchon's style is meant to imitate filmic techniques. These include simulating dolly shots, close-ups, and film cuts, as well as detailing the lighting, art direction, and actor notes within his narration. He also conveys the presence of film stylistically, often breaking from his narration of a scene to paste in dialogue as if from a script. Multiple times we see him prefacing a new scene with an establishing shot, letting us know where and when we are within the timeline of the plot. More obviously, the incorporation of a row of squares as section breaks simulates the borders on film that would help navigate it through a projector. This amalgamation of description, style, and technique conveys both the audience experience and the experience of those who would be producing the film. Pynchon acts as the editor and the director of the story, an overbearing god for the universe of his characters. Says Thomas More, "We are free to think of the camera that is the sentence as Pynchon's own filming Gravity's Rainbow, but the camera in it is filming a concentric reality." During a film, whatever is happening on screen is seen as perfectly normal and real to the characters, in spite of how ridiculous or jumbled it registers to the audience. In the separation between the audience and the screen, the camera offers us a look into their world, ourselves safe within the confines of our home or squeaky theater seat. Through this medium, we find ourselves getting caught up in the story and the world presented to us, and we typically find ourselves getting sucked into the experience of those characters, sometimes to the point where we imagine ourselves in their place. Gravity's Rainbow denies us this immersion, in a way similar to the style of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. The film is not consistent in its editing style. It switches between smooth dolly shots and match cuts to unmotivated jump cuts, making it difficult to stay passively involved in the scene. This style is very similar to Pynchon's. Thomas More describes his style as though Pynchon's sentences were camera motions. As the dolly moves in, the frames jump nervously, self-sufficiently, over any images that might resonate. This technique is commonly used in films to create confusion, and to make the audience uneasy. It is difficult to follow, but not impossible. What it is, however, is ambiguous. Suggestions of action without any clear distinctions between the reality and the fantasy. This is a trope cinema uses to make us uncomfortable, confused, to have the audience doubt what they think they are seeing. As you try and follow the progression of these stories, you can't help but ask, what is going on? That question is one that anyone reading Gravity's Rainbow can't help but ask. In film, we can seamlessly shift from one reality to another. In literature, even if it is as descriptive and visually conveying as Pynchon's novel is, we find ourselves getting caught up in the words as we translate them to images, our concentration being on that rather than on perceiving the shift until we are a few sentences in. Pynchon tries to remedy this by staying in control of the camera as he is conveying the story. When we are most aware of this control of the camera is the scene where the cameraman narrates his filming Katja. In this scene, Pynchon reveals a flaw in cinematic storytelling. Pynchon specifies the camera's motions, the lighting, and the assumed reactions both from the cameraman and the audience, particularly their pleasure at seeing her. However, Katja herself is more than how the camera and the audience interprets her. At the images she sees in the mirror, Katja also feels the cameraman's pleasure, but knows what he cannot, that inside herself, enclosed in the Sonia surface of dear fabric and dead cells, she is corruption and ashes. In Breathless, Michel confuses his image for that of Humphrey Bogart, himself wanting to emulate the same personalities of Bogart's characters in his films. However, while the style of the film emulates an American noir, Michel himself, and his experience trying to live as an American gangster, is nothing more than him playing pretend. Pynchon reveals something similar with Slothrop. Slothrop is an example of the impressionability and influence that cinema can have on someone, himself assuming the conduct of multiple stars in cinema tropes throughout the novel, including that of Cary Grant, Groucho Marx, Shirley Temple, and Bela Lugosi. We see how powerful the industry can be in influencing its viewership. At the end of the novel, any such immersion or action to join this filmic fantasy is broken with a sudden cut into a dark theater, the projector having broken down in some way. In this moment, we are cut off from the world that we have been attempting to understand, and are thrust back into a dark, isolated reality. Pynchon writes, "The last image was too immediate for any eye to register, and in the darkening and awful expanse of screen something is kept on, a film we have not learned to see. It is now a close-up of a face we all know." A film we have not yet learned to see? With a modern television screen, a black screen becomes a mirror, reflecting back those watching it. Once the viewer, now the viewed, we feel jarred whenever our connection to Netflix or cable cuts out, and we meet eyes with our intense stares. Despite Pynchon's warnings, our need to tell stories through any means is not likely to disappear because of some fear that we will all suddenly prioritize fantasy over reality. Through storytelling of any kind, we are able to share a collective vision and experience, and film is just the latest invention in how we tell stories. Our need to escape reality did not begin because of the invention of the projector. We need our illusions, we need magic. We cannot survive without them because our own pitiable beings are too inadequate to be self-supportive. Beyond the necessity for escape and entertainment, we seek fulfillment, even the identity of other lives in film. We exist as entities in a crowded world, searching for ways to define ourselves outside of a group. There is a separation between the audience and the screen, but the camera allows us to experience a world that we would otherwise never be able to access. In Pynchon's novel, we are able to go beyond what the camera can show us, the new style revealing more than either narrative or filmic storytelling can do alone. In this way, Pynchon doesn't allow for us to be swept up into the dream world that Hollywood tries to sell us. He takes the pristine, calculated world of film and injects it with brutal revelations, shattering the Hollywood likeness we see in these characters and in the story as a whole. Much like Slothrop's multiple identities, we can feel powerful by experiencing so many different personalities and experiences through film. However, cinema also contributed immeasurably to his loss of being, in place of becoming larger than life. He lost himself in film, and as we look into the face we all know, we come to realize that in the time we were immersed in the film, we lost ourselves in the same way. Cinema can expand our being, our experience, but in the grand scheme of things, we can never bridge the gap between the screen and the audience. The camera is a one-way street, and no matter our desire for escape or fulfillment, we can be no more than stand-ins for those characters on screen.